The first time Tessa Brooks and I shared a hotel room, she looked at the single king bed, sighed like the universe had personally disappointed her, and said, "One bed, don't overthink it." Which was easy for her to say. She wasn't the one who had spent 18 months pretending not to notice the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was about to win an argument. My name is Owen Mason. I was 29 years old, a senior strategy analyst at a Chicago consulting firm, and at that exact moment I was standing in the doorway of a lake resort suite with a duffel bag in one hand, a laptop case in the other, and my work rival close enough beside me that I could smell her rain-soaked vanilla shampoo. Outside, the company retreat was already going badly. A September storm had rolled over Lake Michigan like it had a grudge. Half the leadership team was delayed. The resort's power had flickered twice. Somewhere downstairs, a drunk account manager was trying to organize karaoke before dinner, which should have been illegal under several human rights treaties. And the front desk clerk had just told us, with the exhausted smile of a man who had repeated the same apology 40 times, "I'm so sorry. We're fully booked. This is the only room left." Tessa had blinked once. Only room. Yes, ma'am. For two employees who are not married, dating, related, or emotionally equipped for this. The clerk's smile twitched. Yes, ma'am. I should have said something helpful, something professional. Instead, because I was tired and wet and secretly delighted by her phrasing, I said, "I feel emotionally equipped." Tessa turned her head slowly toward me. She had that look she used in conference rooms when she was about to destroy a forecast model and make it sound like a favor. "You once got defensive because I changed the font size on a slide deck. It was visual sabotage. It was Calibri 11. It had a tone." The clerk looked between us like he regretted having ears. That was Tessa and me. Rivals, technically. Competitors, definitely. Enemies, only if you asked her before coffee. We worked in the same division at Whitman Pierce, a firm full of people who used words like alignment when they meant please stop arguing. Tessa and I had joined the company in the same year, climbed at almost the same pace, and ended up fighting for the same promotion. Director of Client Strategy. She was sharp, composed, and terrifyingly good with clients. I was better with messy data, difficult negotiations, and talking executives down from expensive bad ideas. Together, we were useful. Separately, we were dangerous. Our boss, Marianne Voss, loved putting us on the same projects. "Steel sharpens steel," she always said. Tessa once muttered, "So do knives." The problem was, I liked her. Not in the harmless way you like someone who makes work interesting. Not in the distant way where you can admire a person and move on with your day. I liked the way she listened before she cut through nonsense. I liked that she remembered the names of junior employees' spouses. I liked that she brought two pens to every meeting and always slid one across the table to me without looking when mine inevitably died. I liked that she challenged me without making me feel small. And I hated that I liked all of that, because I had learned early that wanting someone who could see through you was a dangerous habit. My parents had turned every dinner table into a courtroom. By 22, I decided peace was better than passion. Dates stayed casual. Work stayed clean. Feelings stayed in locked drawers where they belonged. Then Tessa Brooks walked into my life wearing navy heels and a skeptical expression, and started opening drawers without permission. Upstairs, the resort suite was nicer than expected, which somehow made the situation worse. There was a fireplace, a balcony looking over black water and shaking pine trees, a small sofa, one bathroom, and right in the center, one enormous bed with white sheets folded so perfectly it felt accusatory. Tessa stepped in first and set her suitcase upright. I stayed near the door. "I'll go back down. Maybe they have a cot." "They don't. You don't know that." "I asked while you were busy making a moral stance about resort mints." "They said complimentary, there was one." "You counted?" "I noticed patterns." She slipped off her blazer and I suddenly became very interested in the thermostat. Her blouse was pale blue, damp at the shoulders from the rain. Nothing dramatic, nothing inappropriate. Just enough to remind me that beneath all our spreadsheets and boardroom sparring, she was a woman and I was a man with a pulse and a very poor strategy for ignoring it. Tessa caught me looking away. A small smile touched her mouth. Relax, Mason. I'm not going to pounce on you. I wasn't worried. You looked like a Victorian widow who saw an ankle. I was being respectful. You were staring at the wall like it owed you money. I laughed before I could stop myself. That was the thing about her. She never let the air get too heavy unless she meant to. She could jab without drawing blood. I dropped my duffel by the sofa. I'll sleep there. Tessa looked at the sofa. It was decorative, meaning it had been designed by someone who believed human spines were theoretical. You're 6 feet tall, she said. 6'1". Congratulations on the extra inch of suffering. I'll manage. She crossed her arms. Owen. She almost never used my first name at work. It landed differently in that room. Softer. Closer. I'm not making you sleep on a couch shaped like a fortune cookie, she said. We're adults. The bed is huge. We can build a wall of pillows and act like normal people. Normal people don't usually need a border treaty. Normal people haven't seen you take up space at a conference table. Because I have presence. You have elbows. The storm cracked outside, close enough to rattle the balcony door. The lights blinked off. For one full second, the room disappeared. Then the emergency lights glowed faintly from the hallway, painting Tessa in a soft, gray outline. She inhaled sharply, not loudly, not dramatically, but I heard it. You okay? I asked. Fine. The answer came too fast. I didn't move toward her, not right away. I knew better than to crowd someone just because I noticed a crack. The lights flickered back on, dimmer than before. Tessa turned away and busied herself with her suitcase. Storms and old buildings, very charming. Add a mysterious portrait and we've got a tax write-off for trauma. I watched her hands. Steady, but not as steady as usual. You don't like storms, I said. I don't like elevators. Storms are men who say circle back when they mean ignore this forever. We all have burdens. I'll avoid all three tonight. She glanced over her shoulder. You're going to avoid being a man? I said I'll try. That got me another smile, and this one lasted half a second longer than professional guidelines allowed. Then my phone buzzed. Marianne. I almost didn't answer. The retreat hadn't officially started until dinner, and I had no interest in explaining to our boss that her two favorite gladiators had been assigned one romantic-looking battlefield. But Tessa saw the name on the screen. Put it on speaker, she said. That seems dangerous. She already knows about the room. My stomach dropped. How? Tessa lifted an eyebrow. Because I texted her from the lobby before you started negotiating for mint equality. Of course she had, I answered on speaker. Hi, Marianne. Owen, Tessa there? Tessa leaned against the desk. Unfortunately. Marianne's voice came through crisp and amused. Good. I heard about the booking mess. I trust you can both behave like adults for one night. Tessa looked directly at me. One of us can. I pointed at myself and mouthed, me. Marianne sighed. Save the chemistry for the clients. The room went quiet. Tessa's eyes moved away first. My chest did something stupid. Marianne continued, unaware or perhaps far too aware. Listen, tomorrow's retreat schedule is changing. The Reynolds account is sending their COO in person. They're nervous about the renewal. I straightened. Reynolds was our biggest healthcare client. We need a unified pitch, Marianne said. Not two competing versions, one strategy, one voice. Tessa's expression sharpened. Mine probably did too. Then Marianne dropped the part that changed the temperature in the room. And I'm deciding on the director promotion after this retreat. Whoever proves they can lead without turning every room into a duel gets my recommendation. Tessa looked at me. I looked at her. The bed sat between us like evidence. Marianne said, so whatever this room situation is, figure it out. Because by tomorrow afternoon I need to know if you two are better as rivals. She paused. Or as partners. The call ended. For a moment, the only sound was rain hitting the balcony glass. Tessa slipped her phone onto the desk and gave a quiet laugh, but it didn't sound like amusement. Partners, she said. I tried for a joke. Could be worse. She looked at the bed again, then back at me. And this time there was no sarcasm in her face. Owen, she said softly, that's exactly what I'm afraid of. I should have let the comment pass. That was the professional move, the mature move, the move recommended by every HR training module with stock photos of people smiling over salad. Instead, I asked, why? Tessa's mouth tightened. Why what? Why are you afraid of us being partners? She turned toward the balcony where rain blurred the lake into a sheet of black glass. Because we're good at competing. And bad at cooperating? No. Her voice was quieter now. Because I think we might be good at that too. The word slipped under my ribs. For 18 months, I'd told myself Tessa Brooks saw me as an obstacle. A useful one, maybe. Occasionally entertaining, but still something in her path. I hadn't allowed myself to imagine that she'd ever wondered what we'd be like on the same side. The room felt smaller suddenly. I set my phone face down on the dresser. That doesn't sound like a disaster. It does if one of us stops thinking clearly. I gave a short laugh. You think partnership leads to brain damage? With you? Possibly. There she was again. Armor back on, smile sharpened. But I had seen the opening. And for once I didn't want to pretend I hadn't. I don't think I make you think less clearly, I said. Tessa faced me. Bold claim. I think I make you think faster. Her eyes narrowed, but there was color in her cheeks now. Is that supposed to be flattering? It was accurate first, flattering second. She looked like she wanted to argue, which was comforting. Then she didn't. Instead, she walked to the desk and opened the leather folder with the retreat itinerary, breaking the moment before either of us had to name it. Dinner's in 40 minutes, she said. We need to not look like we've been trapped in a romantic comedy. Too late, there's a fireplace. And one bed. And a storm. And a promotion decision. Corporate romantic comedy, I said. The least sexy kind. That made her laugh, not the polished laugh she used with clients. This one caught her off guard and lit her whole face before she turned away to hide it. I was in trouble. We agreed on a shower schedule with the intensity of negotiating a trade agreement. Tessa went first. I sat on the terrible little sofa and reviewed the Reynolds file, or pretended to. Mostly I listened to the muffled rush of water and tried not to picture things I had no right picturing. When she emerged 20 minutes later, I forgot every number in the account. She'd changed into a black wrap dress with long sleeves, simple and elegant, the kind of thing that should have looked businesslike. On her, it looked like a dare. Her damp hair fell loose around her shoulders. She wore small gold earrings I'd seen before across conference tables and somehow never understood as dangerous until now. She caught me staring, again. Owen, I blinked. Yes. That was not the look of a man analyzing renewal risk. I was analyzing. What was the metric? Catastrophic distraction. Her expression shifted. The joke should have saved us. Instead, it opened the air between us. For a moment, she didn't tease. She just looked at me as if she was deciding whether to let herself believe I meant it. Then she said softly, "Your turn in the shower." Right. I stood too quickly and nearly clipped my shoulder on the closet door. Her smile returned. Very smooth. I'm known for it. You're known for moving fast when cornered. I stopped at the bathroom door and looked back. Is that what you think I do? Her smile faded a little. The question hung there, more serious than I'd intended. Tessa lowered her eyes to the file in her hands. Sometimes. I wanted to ask what corner she thought I was in. Instead, I showered, changed into a charcoal button-down and dark trousers, and gave myself a stern mirror lecture about restraint. By the time we made it downstairs, the resort restaurant was glowing with candles because half the light still hadn't come back. The company had taken over the dining room, but the storm had stranded enough people that the crowd was smaller than planned. Naturally, the only remaining two-top was tucked beside the windows away from everyone else, with a view of rain streaking over the lake. Tessa looked at it. I looked at it. Absolutely not, she said. The hostess smiled. This way. We sat. It felt absurdly like a date, which meant Tessa immediately opened the Reynolds file between us like a shield. COO's main concern is cost control, she said. Her main concern is trust, I countered. Cost is the language she's using. Tessa glanced up. You read the transcript. Twice. So did I. Of course you did. The candle flickered between us. Her face was softer in that light, the sharp edges warmed. I watched her tap one finger against the margin of the page, the way she did when connecting ideas. We should lead with the patient retention numbers, she said. And the implementation timeline, I added. She nodded slowly. Then the savings model. But not your original model. Her eyes flashed. Excuse me? It's too perfect. That is not a flaw. For a client who doesn't trust perfect, it is. She leaned back. You're saying I should make my work worse? I'm saying show the seams, show where the risk lives. She'll believe us if we admit what's hard. Tessa stared at me for a beat. Then she took a sip of water. That's annoyingly smart. I'll accept the compliment buried in the insult. It was mostly insult. But not entirely. No, she admitted. Not entirely. Our server appeared. Tessa ordered salmon. I ordered steak. We both ordered the same red wine by accident. She looked amused. Really? I can change. Don't. I want to see if you have taste. You've worked with me for 18 months. Professionally, the jury remains out. When the wine came, we stopped pretending to work for a while. Maybe it was the candlelight. Maybe it was the storm muting the rest of the room. Maybe it was the fact that everyone else from Whitman Pierce was just far enough away that we could pretend we were two ordinary people, not competitors with Marianne's promotion clock ticking above our heads. Tessa told me she'd grown up outside Detroit with two younger brothers who still called her before making any major life decision, including buying winter coats. I told her my older sister had 3 kids and believed I lived in a glass office full of emotionally repressed men, which was not inaccurate. Tessa smiled into her wine. Do you always deflect with jokes? Only when I'm awake. That sounds exhausting. It's efficient. No. Her gaze held mine. It's lonely. The word landed too accurately. I looked down at my glass. You always this direct after half a glass of wine? Only with people who act like they're one clever sentence away from disappearing. I should have made another joke. I didn't. My parents fought a lot, I said. Still do when they're in the same zip code. I got good at reading the room. Leaving before things got ugly. Tessa's expression softened without pity. That mattered. So, when you feel cornered, she said carefully, you move. I thought of what she'd said upstairs, sometimes. Yeah, I admitted, I move. Her fingers rested near the stem of her glass, inches from mine. I don't like people leaving either. It was the first vulnerable thing she had offered me outright. My voice lowered. Who left? Her eyes flicked toward the rain. My father. When I was 15, not dramatically, no big goodbye, just slowly, missed dinners, missed birthdays, missed everything until absence became the family tradition. I hated him a little, immediately. But this wasn't a problem to solve. It was a door she had opened. So I didn't reach for advice. I reached for honesty. That must have made trust feel expensive. She looked back at me. Yes, she whispered. Neither of us moved for a moment. Then, under the table, her knee brushed mine. It could have been accidental. Except she didn't pull away. Neither did I. The contact was small. Ridiculous, really. Fabric against fabric. warmth through layers, but it felt more intimate than any kiss I'd had in the last year because Tessa knew exactly what she was doing. She was staying. I turned my hand palm up on the table between us. An invitation, not a demand. She looked at it, looked at me. Then she slid her fingers into mine. My heart went completely off script. Her hand was cool from the water glass, her grip tentative for only a second before it settled. Strong. Certain. "This is a terrible idea," she said. "Probably. We still want the same promotion." "I know. And we are sharing a room." I noticed. Her thumb moved once over my knuckle, and my ability to breathe like a normal man suffered. "Owen," she said, almost sternly. "Yes?" "If you run from this, I will make your life very difficult." I smiled. "Tessa, you already do." This time, when she laughed, she didn't let go. We let go before dessert. Not because either of us wanted to, because the head of risk management wandered past our table with the pleased expression of a man collecting gossip like reward points. Tessa withdrew her hand first, smooth as a magician. I missed it immediately. "Professional distance," she murmured. "Of course. Our knees are still touching." "So they are. Move yours." "You move yours." Her mouth twitched. "This is why nobody lets us co-lead." But she didn't move. After dinner, the retreat officially began with a welcome mixer in the lodge bar, which was just corporate purgatory with exposed beams. People wore name tags even though we all worked together. Someone had arranged team-building conversation cards on the tables. Tessa picked one up and read aloud, "Describe your leadership style in one word." "Hungry," I said. "That's not a leadership style." "It is at buffets." She flipped the card over. "What animal best represents your work ethic?" "You first." "Wolf." I studied her. "Accurate." "Yours?" "Golden retriever." Tessa nearly choked on her water. "Absolutely not." "Loyal, strategic, good hair." "You are not a golden retriever. You're a fox in a quarter zip." "I'm choosing to hear charming and woodland." She gave me a look over the rim of her glass, and for one dangerous second, the bar disappeared again. Then Marianne appeared at Tessa's shoulder. "Good," she said, eyeing us like she could see through bone. "You're talking." Tessa straightened. "About work animals." "I'm sure." Marianne handed us 2 folders. "Reynolds moved the meeting to 9 tomorrow morning. COO wants a concise recommendation. 20 minutes. I took 1 folder. "We can do that." Marianne's gaze flicked between us. "Can you?" Tessa answered before I could. "Yes." No qualifier, no competitive little correction. Just yes. It hit me harder than it should have. Marianne nodded. "Then prove it." When she left, Tessa opened the folder and scanned the new notes. The old rivalry should have snapped into place. We should have retreated to separate corners, each building a case to be right. Instead, she shifted closer so I could read with her. Her shoulder brushed my arm. "Your trust angle," she said quietly. "It works better now." "Our trust angle." She looked up. I kept my eyes on the page, mostly because looking at her was becoming a liability. "If we're partners, it's ours." For a moment, she said nothing. Then her voice softened. "Careful, Mason." That almost sounded generous. "Don't tell anyone. I have a brand." We worked in the bar until people started singing along to a playlist that should have been sealed in 2009. By 10:30, we had a pitch outline built on both our strengths. Tessa's clean numbers, my messy human truth. By 11, the storm had worsened, rattling the windows so hard the bartender announced last call early. By 11:15, we were back upstairs, alone with the fireplace, the rain, and the bed we had both been successfully ignoring. Tessa dropped the folder on the desk. "Pillow wall." Architectural integrity is important. We stood on opposite sides of the king bed and began constructing the most formal barrier in resort history. 4 pillows down the center, a rolled blanket at the foot. Tessa stepped back to admire it. There, a tasteful demilitarized zone. It'll never hold. Then control your elbows. I thought you liked my elbows. I have never once said that. You've mentioned them a lot. In court, that's called evidence of distress. She bent to pull back the covers, and I had to look away again, because the line of her neck in the lamplight was apparently enough to dismantle my entire moral framework. Owen, she said. I looked back. She was watching me from across the bed, her expression unreadable. You keep doing that. What? Deciding not to look. Heat crawled up my neck. I'm trying to be respectful. I know. She hugged one pillow against her chest, suddenly less amused. But sometimes it feels like you're trying not to want me. The sentence stopped the room. The rain, the fire. My breath. All of it went quiet around the truth she had placed between us. I could have lied. I had lied in small ways for months, with sarcasm, with distance, with carefully timed exits from conference rooms when she leaned too close over my laptop. Not tonight. I am, I said. Her fingers tightened on the pillow. I stepped around the corner of the bed, slow enough that she could tell me to stop. She didn't. I'm trying not to want you, I said again, because I respect you, because we work together, because tomorrow matters, because if I let myself start, I don't know how to make it small. Tessa's eyes searched mine. And I don't want small, she said. My heart made a hard, helpless turn toward her. She dropped the pillow. It landed soundlessly on the carpet. I also don't want reckless, she added. I can do not reckless. You once sent a 12-slide rebuttal at midnight titled Respectfully, No. That was passion for accuracy. That was warfare in Helvetica. I smiled despite the way my pulse was hammering. I'm capable of restraint. Prove it. I took one more step. We were close now, close enough that I could see the faint freckles across her nose, the mascara shadow at the edge of her lashes, the vulnerable tremble she would have denied under oath. I lifted my hand and stopped beside her cheek. Can I? She nodded. I touched her face like it was something I'd been trusted with, not something I'd won. Her eyes closed for half a second. That half second ruined me. I leaned in and kissed her forehead. Soft, deliberate, nowhere near enough. When I pulled back, her eyes were open, dark and stunned. That, she said, voice uneven, was your proof of restraint? Yes. I hated it. No, you didn't. No, she whispered. I didn't. Then she caught the front of my shirt and rose onto her toes. Our first real kiss was not professional. It was not strategic. It did not align with company values. It was Tessa making a choice. Her mouth met mine with the same fierce intelligence she brought to every argument, only warmer, unguarded, alive with all the things we had been refusing to say. I slid one hand to her waist, the other still careful at her jaw, and kissed her back like I had been starving quietly for over a year. She made a small sound against my mouth. That was when I stopped, not because I wanted to, because wanting had become a room with no walls. I rested my forehead against hers. Tessa. I know. Her breathing was uneven. Work, promotion, room, bed. Many problems. Not problems. Her laugh was shaky. Complications, then? Yes. She loosened her grip on my shirt but didn't step away. Do you regret that? No. The answer came so fast her eyes softened. I brushed my thumb once along her waist. Do you? No. Then quieter. But I'm scared. That was the part nobody put in romantic comedies. The softness after the spark, the terror of being seen and still wanting to stay. Me too, I admitted. She looked relieved by that, which made my chest ache. We changed for bed in turns with an exaggerated politeness that would have been funny if my body hadn't still remembered the exact shape of her against me. When the lights were out, the pillow wall between us looked ridiculous in the faint glow from the fireplace. Tessa lay on her side facing me. I lay on mine facing her. The storm had softened, but the rain still tapped at the glass. "This is a terrible pillow wall," she whispered. "Structurally, yes. I can see you. That's usually how walls fail." She was quiet for a moment. "Owen?" "Yeah. Tomorrow, if Marianne only recommends one of us?" I knew where she was going. The old fear rose. Competition, loss, resentment. All the reasons to retreat before anything could hurt. I reached over the pillow border and offered my hand in the dark. Tessa looked at it, then she took it. "We don't decide tonight's truth based on tomorrow's outcome," I said. Her fingers curled around mine. "That sounds suspiciously healthy." "I'm trying something new. Don't strain yourself," I smiled. "Good night, Brooks." Her thumb moved slowly over my knuckles, the same small touch from dinner. "Good night, Mason." I fell asleep holding the hand of my rival, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like running. I woke up to Tessa's foot hooked around my ankle. The pillow wall had collapsed in the night like every empire built on denial. One pillow was on the floor. One was wedged against my back. The rolled blanket had migrated somewhere near the headboard. Tessa lay close enough that her hair brushed my chin, her hand still loosely caught in mine beneath the covers. For several seconds, I didn't move. I told myself it was because I didn't want to wake her. That was only partly true. Mostly, I wanted to memorize this version of her. No armor, no sharp reply waiting on her tongue. Just warmth and quiet breathing, and the faint line between her brows smoothing in sleep. Then her eyes opened. She blinked once, looked at our joined hands, looked at our tangled feet, then looked at me. "Your elbow breached the treaty," she whispered. "My elbow? Your foot has annexed my ankle. That was strategic defense. You're very aggressive in your sleep. I'm very effective in my sleep." I smiled before I could stop myself. Her gaze dropped to my mouth, and the morning changed. Last night could have been blamed on stormlight and wine and one too many honest sentences. But now it was daylight, pale and gray through the curtains, and Tessa was still looking at me like she wanted to choose badly and carefully at the same time. I lifted our joined hands and kissed her knuckles. Her teasing expression faltered. "Owen," she said softly. "I know, 9 o'clock meeting." That was not what I was going to say. My heart kicked once. "What were you going to say?" She took a breath. "That I liked waking up with you." There were replies I could have made. Clever ones, safe ones. Instead, I leaned in and kissed her. It was gentler than the night before, but somehow more dangerous. Morning kisses had consequences. They didn't belong to storms or accidents. They belonged to people who remembered what they had done and wanted to do it again. Tessa's hand slid to my jaw. She kissed me back with a sleepy sigh that went straight through me. Then the alarm on her phone blared from the nightstand. We separated like guilty teenagers. Tessa grabbed it and stabbed the screen. Reality is rude. Reality has poor timing. She sat up, hair mussed, one strap of her sleep shirt slipping off her shoulder, and pointed at me. "No looking. I'm looking at the ceiling. You are looking at the ceiling with intent. I contain multitudes." She threw a pillow at my face. By 8:30, we were downstairs in the small conference room, dressed like nothing had happened. Tessa wore a cream blouse and tailored trousers. I wore a navy suit and the expression of a man who absolutely had not spent the morning kissing his rival. The only sign was that when she handed me a pen, her fingers lingered for half a second. It was enough. The Reynolds COO Andrea Hall arrived at 9 sharp with 2 directors and a face that suggested she had not come to be charmed. Marianne sat at the end of the table, silent, evaluating. Normally that would have brought out the worst in us. I would have pushed. Tessa would have polished. We would have turned competence into combat. This time, when I finished framing the renewal risk around trust, Tessa picked up the exact thread. "Which is why we don't recommend pretending implementation will be painless," she said, clicking to her savings model. "We recommend showing your regional teams where the friction is, then giving them control points before rollout. Andrea's gaze sharpened. You're admitting your platform will create friction. Yes, Tessa said, because any vendor who tells you otherwise is selling you a fantasy. I added, and fantasies get expensive in Q3. Andrea looked between us. For the next 20 minutes, Tessa and I moved like we'd rehearsed for weeks instead of hours. She made the numbers human. I made the human stakes measurable. When Andrea challenged a timeline, Tessa didn't defend out of pride. She glanced at me, not for permission, for partnership. I answered, then handed it back to her. By the end, Andrea closed the folder and said, This is the first recommendation I've heard from your firm that sounds like you understand what we're actually afraid of. Marianne's face gave away nothing. Tessa's foot brushed mine under the table. This time, I knew it wasn't an accident. After the clients left, the room emptied around us. Marianne stayed behind, tapping one finger against her notebook. That, she said, was the presentation I've been waiting 18 months to see. Tessa's shoulders eased by a fraction. I let myself breathe. Marianne looked at me, then at her. You're both stronger when you stop trying to win against each other. Tessa gave a small, careful nod. We know. My chest warmed at the we. Marianne's eyes narrowed slightly, but not unkindly. Good. I'll make my promotion recommendation this afternoon. The warmth cooled. Of course, the decision still existed. One chair, two of us. When Marianne left, Tessa began gathering papers with brisk, precise movements. Tessa. I'm fine. I knew that tone. It was the verbal equivalent of a locked door. You're doing the thing, I said. What thing? Pretending the part that matters doesn't matter. She snapped the folder shut. The promotion does matter. I know. And if you get it, I need to be able to be happy for you without feeling like an idiot. I stepped closer. Why would wanting me make you an idiot? Because wanting people has historically not been my most profitable strategy. There it was. The old wound speaking in business language because that was safer than grief. I softened my voice. I'm not your father. Her eyes flashed. I know that. And you're not my parents' marriage. That stopped her. I swallowed. But if we keep treating each other like past damage wearing new clothes, we're going to ruin this before it becomes anything. She stared at me, expression wavering between fear and fury and something tender enough to hurt. This? She asked. I didn't dodge. You and me. Her breath caught. The hallway outside buzzed with retreat noise. Voices, rolling carts, laughter from some forced activity involving trust falls. But inside that small conference room, everything narrowed to her face. I want this, I said. Not because of the storm, not because of the room, not because competition got confusing. I want you. I want us to find out who we are when we're not hiding behind being rivals. Tessa's eyes shone, though she blinked hard like she could discipline emotion back into place. And if I get the promotion, she asked, then I will be proud of you. And jealous? Probably a little. I smiled faintly. I'm evolved, not dead. A laugh escaped her, shaky and reluctant. If you get it, she asked, then I'll expect you to be insufferably honest with me about every mistake I make. I can do that. I know, it's one of your love languages. The word love slipped out too early. We both heard it. Tessa went still. I opened my mouth to correct, retreat, soften it into a joke. Then she stepped into me, grabbed my lapels, and kissed me. Not like last night. Not cautious, not testing. This was a decision made in daylight, in a conference room, with promotion folders on the table and the world just outside the door. I wrapped my arms around her waist and pulled her close. She made that same small sound, the one that undid me. And for several seconds there was no rivalry, no title, no fear. Just Tessa choosing me back. When she broke the kiss, her forehead rested against my chin. You are not allowed to run, she whispered. I'm not. Running. I mean it. So do I. She tipped her head back. We're going to be complicated. Definitely. People will talk. People already talk. Risk management saw our knees last night. Her lips curved. Scandalous. Deeply. For a few minutes, we stayed there, laughing quietly into each other's space like we'd stolen something precious from a day designed to measure us. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Her smile faded. It's Marianne, she said. She wants us in the lodge office at 4. I looked at the screen, then back at her. The decision. Tessa slipped her hand into mine, firm and warm. Partners? I asked. Her grip tightened. Partners, she said. And this time, neither of us let go. At 4 o'clock, Tessa and I walked into Marianne's temporary office, still holding hands. We let go before entering, but not fast enough. Marianne looked up from behind the desk, saw the space between us, saw our faces, and sighed. Oh, for heaven's sake, she said. Finally. Tessa froze. Excuse me? Marianne removed her reading glasses. Do you think I've spent 18 months watching you two weaponize sexual tension in budget meetings and learned nothing? I coughed. Tessa turned scarlet. It was possibly the greatest moment of my professional life. Marianne held up a hand. I don't need details. I don't want details. I want adults who can disclose appropriately to HR if this becomes serious, and not make it my problem if it doesn't. It's serious, I said. Tessa looked at me. I hadn't planned to say it that quickly, that plainly, in front of our boss. But once the words were out, I didn't regret them. Tessa's face softened in a way that made the whole room feel less like judgment and more like weather clearing. Yes, she said. It is. Marianne studied us for a moment, then nodded as if that answered more than she had asked. Good. Then I'll be direct. I'm recommending Tessa for Director of Client Strategy. The words hit. For half a second, the old part of me reacted first. The competitive part. The careful little machine that measured wins and losses before emotion had a chance to complicate them. Then I looked at Tessa. She stood very still, like happiness was something fragile she didn't trust herself to hold. And I knew. I didn't have to perform pride. I felt it. I smiled. You earned it. Her eyes flicked to mine, wary and hopeful at once. Owen, you did, I said. And Reynolds proved it. Marianne leaned back. I'm also recommending Owen for a new role. My head turned. What? Senior lead, strategic accounts. Same level, different track. More client authority, less internal management. Frankly, it's where your instincts belong. I stared at her. Tessa's hand found mine beside the chair, hidden from Marianne's desk, but not from Marianne's eyes. Our boss pretended not to notice. You both get a step forward, Marianne said. Not the same step. That seems to be a lesson the two of you needed. Tessa laughed once, breathless. I squeezed her fingers. For so long, I had thought one of us had to lose for the other to win. That was the shape rivalry gave the world. Narrow, brutal, simple. But Tessa had never been my opposite. She was my match. After the meeting, we walked out into the lodge hallway where retreat chaos continued, as if our lives had not just quietly rearranged themselves. Someone was trying to herd consultants into a mindfulness circle. Someone else was arguing with a coffee machine. Tessa pulled me into a small alcove near a window. You meant it? She asked. That it's serious? Her voice went soft. Yes. I stepped closer. I meant it when I said I wanted you. I meant it when I said I wasn't running. And I meant it when I said you earned that promotion. She searched my face, maybe looking for resentment, maybe looking for the exit sign I used to keep lit behind my eyes. She didn't find it. So she rose onto her toes and kissed me. It was brief because we were at a company retreat and Marianne had just warned us not to become an HR webinar. But it was sure. Happy. A promise pressed into the corner of my mouth. When she pulled back, she smiled. Congratulations, senior lead. Congratulations, director. You're going to be impossible about this. Me? Never. You already look smug. I'm dating the new director. That feels worth a little smugness. Her cheeks warmed. Dating? I stilled. Unless you prefer engaged in a complex strategic alliance. I prefer dinner, she said. With me? With you. Tonight? Tonight. I glanced toward the storm-cleared windows where late sunlight was breaking over the lake. That sounds dangerously like a date. Tessa slipped her hand into mine. Don't overthink it. 6 months later, I moved into a new apartment with better light, and Tessa claimed the left side of my couch before I had finished assembling the coffee table. We took things carefully at work. We disclosed to HR. We avoided public displays beyond the occasional devastating shared glance over bad quarterly forecasts. Tessa became the kind of director people wanted to impress because she made excellence feel possible. I built the strategic accounts role into something that let me do what I loved without pretending I wanted her job. And outside the office, we learned each other for real. She learned that I sang badly when cooking and worse when assembling furniture. I learned that she cried at old dog commercials and denied it with terrifying conviction. She liked sleeping with one cold foot tucked under my leg. I liked waking up before her and making coffee strong enough to count as a legal stimulant. We still argued. Of course we argued. We argued about slide titles, thermostat settings, whether brunch was a meal or a social trap, and whether my gray sweater was classic or emotionally dependent on 2018. But we stopped arguing to win. Mostly. A year after that night at the resort, Whitman Pierce held the next annual retreat in a downtown hotel with extremely competent booking software. Tessa and I checked in together. The front desk clerk smiled. One king room, correct? Tessa looked at me, eyes bright with the memory. I leaned against the counter. Only if she promises not to annex my ankle. She makes no promises, Tessa said. In the elevator, she stood beside me in a red dress, her hand tucked into mine, her thumb moving over my knuckles the way it had under the dinner table during the storm. You know, she said, I was terrified that first night. Of sharing a room with me? Of wanting to. The elevator doors opened onto our floor. I turned to her before we stepped out. I was terrified you'd see through me. She smiled. I did. And? She reached up, straightened my collar, and kissed me softly. And I stayed. Later, in our room, there was one bed, no pillow wall, and rain tapping gently against the window like an old story returning with a kinder ending. Tessa stood by the glass, city lights shining around her, and held out her hand. I took it. Not as a rival. Not as a man preparing to leave before the fight began. As someone chosen. As someone who chose her back. What would you have done if your company retreat overbooked you into one room with your biggest work rival and there was only one bed? Have you ever experienced something even remotely similar? Tell me your story in the comments. If you liked this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.